The woman standing at the base gate didn't flinch when the young guard stepped forward and called her a fraud. She had been called worse. Her uniform was faded at the shoulders, her boots worn smooth at the heel, the kind of wear that came not from a store shelf, but from years of red dust and long marches through forgotten valleys. Yet the guard barely looked at her face before reaching for his radio. "We have an impersonator at the gate," he said flatly. And just like that, every soldier within earshot turned to stare. "Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening." Her name was Sergeant Amara Khalil, though she hadn't used that title in 3 years. 3 years since the ambush. 3 years since the explosion that swallowed her unit whole and left her the only one walking out of the smoke, barely. 3 years of surgeries, silence, and a discharge she never asked for. She had come back today for one reason only: a memorial service for the men she could not save. She thought she owed them that much. She thought she could slip in quietly. She was wrong. The crowd that gathered at the gate was small but cutting. A few junior recruits snickered. One officer in pressed khakis crossed his arms and said something low to his colleague, the kind of comment not meant to be heard but designed to land. Amara felt each word like a stone dropping into still water, rippling outward through her chest. Her hands didn't shake, not visibly, but beneath the surface, something ancient and exhausted trembled. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out her identification. The plastic was scratched, the photograph slightly faded, but the serial number was clear. The guard examined it with theatrical skepticism, turning it over as if looking for the watermark of a lie. "This could be forged," he said. And somewhere in the small crowd, someone laughed. She had a choice then. She could raise her voice. She could demand a senior officer. She could list, in precise chronological order, every operation she had walked into and every citation she had earned. But Amara Khalil had learned long ago that dignity was not something you proved to people who had already decided not to see you. She simply stood, steady, quiet, immovable as stone. That was when the air shifted. A door at the far end of the courtyard opened, and the murmuring crowd fell into a sudden, suspended silence. The man who walked through it moved with the measured calm of someone who had given orders in the middle of firefights and never raised his voice. Colonel Dawood Mansour, former commander of the 14th Brigade. The man whose life Amara had pulled from the wreckage of that burning vehicle 3 years ago, carrying him 200 meters on her back, through smoke so thick she navigated by sound alone. He saw her from across the courtyard. He stopped walking. For a long moment, the entire base held its breath. Dust drifted lazily in the afternoon light. A flag snapped once in the wind. The young guard turned toward the colonel with his radio still in hand, ready to explain the situation. He never got the chance. Colonel Mansour crossed the courtyard in long, deliberate strides. When he reached Amara, he did not say a word. He simply raised his right hand, slowly, with full ceremony, and saluted. The kind of salute that carried weight. The kind that silenced rooms. The junior guard's radio slipped slightly in his grip. The officer in pressed khakis unfolded his arms. "This woman," Colonel Mansour finally said, his voice carrying to every corner of that courtyard, "carried me out of hell. You will treat her accordingly." Nobody laughed after that. Amara was escorted inside, not as a suspect, but as a guest of honor. She sat in the front row at the memorial service, beside the families of the men she had fought with. And when the names were read aloud, she did not look away. She let every one of them land. Because that is what real soldiers do. They carry the weight, even when no one is watching, even when no one believes them, even when the cost is invisible and the proof is buried deep in the body. Courage doesn't ask to be seen, but sometimes, finally, it is. And in that dusty courtyard, where a woman had been made to feel like a ghost of herself, she was seen. Fully. Without apology. If this story moved you, drop a comment below, share it with someone who's ever been doubted. And if you're new here, hit subscribe. Every week, we tell the stories that remind us what it means to be human.